Most people think high blood pressure is a heart problem. They imagine clogged arteries, chest pain, or the risk of a heart attack. And while those dangers are very real, there is another organ that often suffers long before the heart sends out an obvious warning: your brain. The frightening part is that the damage usually happens silently. No dramatic pain, no loud alarm, no emergency that forces you to call an ambulance. Instead, your brain begins whispering for help through subtle changes that are easy to dismiss as just getting older. Maybe you've started searching for simple words during conversations. Perhaps you've noticed a strange ringing in your ears that comes and goes. Maybe you wake up feeling mentally foggy even after sleeping through the night. Most people blame stress, some blame retirement. Others simply tell themselves, I'm 75 now, that's probably normal. But what if it isn't? What if those small changes are your brain quietly telling you that years of uncontrolled blood pressure are damaging tiny blood vessels responsible for memory, balance, concentration, and clear thinking? What if recognizing these warning signs today could help reduce your risk of stroke, vascular dementia, or permanent cognitive decline tomorrow? Today, we're counting down 9 silent signs that your blood pressure may already be affecting your brain. The final sign is the one neurologists fear the most because it often happens without pain, without symptoms, and without the person ever realizing it has occurred. Yet, it can permanently change the future of your brain health. Stay with me until the end because understanding that final warning sign could genuinely protect your independence for years to come. My name is Dr. Robert Hale, and I have spent my career helping older adults protect not only their hearts, but also the organ that makes every memory, every conversation, and every precious moment possible: the brain. One lesson has become impossible to ignore. The patients who remain mentally sharp well into their 80s and 90s rarely depend on luck alone. They pay attention to small warning signs before those signs become permanent problems. A landmark study published in The Lancet Neurology, following more than 28,000 adults over the age of 65 for nearly 12 years, found that uncontrolled high blood pressure significantly increased the risk of vascular brain damage, memory decline, and stroke, even among people who believed they felt perfectly healthy. Think about that for a moment. Brain damage was developing while many participants felt completely normal. That is why today's conversation matters, because your brain often whispers long before it screams. Before we begin, I would love to know something about you. Tell me your age in the comments below. And if you regularly check your blood pressure at home, tell me what your usual reading is. I read every comment, and hearing your experiences helps this community learn from one another. Now, let's begin with number 9. Number 9, morning brain fog that lasts longer than 30 minutes. Here is what most people get wrong. They believe morning brain fog is simply part of getting older. They assume it's caused by poor sleep, needing another cup of coffee, or just waking up slowly. Occasionally that's true, but persistent morning brain fog can also be one of the earliest signs that your brain isn't receiving the healthy blood flow it needs. Imagine your brain as a bustling city. Every morning, millions of nerve cells wake up and prepare to communicate with one another. They rely on tiny highways, your blood vessels, to deliver oxygen and nutrients. Now imagine years of high blood pressure slowly damaging those highways. The roads become narrower. Some develop tiny cracks. Traffic slows. Deliveries arrive late. Nothing collapses overnight. But the city becomes less efficient every single day. Your brain functions in remarkably similar ways. When the smallest blood vessels become damaged, certain areas responsible for attention, processing speed, and mental clarity struggle to perform as efficiently as they once did. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University followed 4,800 adults between the ages of 70 and 85 for nearly 9 years. They discovered that participants with poorly controlled blood pressure were significantly more likely to report prolonged morning confusion and slower thinking. Brain imaging later revealed changes in the tiny blood vessels supplying critical areas involved in memory and concentration. One patient I often think about was Richard, a 77-year-old retired architect. He wasn't worried about headaches. He wasn't worried about dizziness. He simply told me, "Doctor, every morning it feels like someone wrapped my brain in a heavy blanket." By lunchtime, he felt completely normal, so he ignored it. After monitoring his blood pressure around the clock, we discovered something surprising. His blood pressure remained dangerously high during the early morning hours, the exact time he felt mentally foggy. Together, we adjusted his medications, reduced evening sodium intake, encouraged daily walking, and improved his sleep routine. 8 weeks later, he smiled before he even sat down. "Doctor, my mornings finally feel clear again. I don't spend the first hour wondering what's wrong with me." That simple improvement restored his confidence. The synergy tip here is critical. Don't measure your blood pressure only in the afternoon. Check it within 30 minutes of waking, before coffee, and before breakfast. Morning readings often reveal patterns that remain hidden during the rest of the day. Number 8. A ringing sound that matches your heartbeat. I see this misunderstood constantly. Many older adults hear ringing in their ears and assume it's simply hearing loss. Sometimes it is. But when that sound pulses in rhythm with your heartbeat, it deserves immediate attention. Imagine holding a garden hose. When water flows smoothly, you barely hear it. But squeeze the hose tightly and suddenly the water rushes through with turbulence and noise. Your arteries behave much the same way. As blood pressure rises, blood may move more forcefully through narrowed or stiffened vessels near the ears. The result can be a rhythmic whooshing or pulsing sound, known as pulsatile tinnitus. Unlike ordinary ringing, this sound often follows the exact rhythm of your heartbeat. Researchers from the Mayo Clinic evaluated more than 3,200 older adults experiencing pulsatile tinnitus. They found that a substantial percentage had uncontrolled hypertension or vascular abnormalities affecting blood flow to the brain. For many patients, treating the underlying blood pressure significantly reduced or completely eliminated the symptom. I remember caring for Susan, a 74-year-old retired school principal. She smiled nervously and said, "Doctor, every night when the house gets quiet, I hear my heartbeat inside my ear." She assumed everyone experienced it. They didn't. Her blood pressure averaged 168/96. After improving her treatment plan, reducing excess sodium, and encouraging regular physical activity, the strange pulsing gradually disappeared. At her follow-up appointment, she laughed. "I never realized silence could sound so beautiful." The synergy tip here is important. If you notice a heartbeat-like sound in one or both ears, especially if it is new, don't simply accept it as aging. Mention it to your healthcare provider. Sometimes your ears are the first place your blood vessels reveal a problem. Number 7. You suddenly can't find simple words. This warning sign often frightens people, and understandably so. Many immediately think, "Am I getting Alzheimer's?" Not necessarily. There are many possible reasons someone occasionally struggles to find the right word. But when high blood pressure begins affecting the brain's communication networks, one of the earliest symptoms can be subtle language difficulty. Think of your brain like a massive library. Every memory, every word, every name you've ever learned is carefully stored inside. Normally, the librarian retrieves the right book instantly. But if the hallways become damaged, reaching the correct shelf suddenly takes longer. The information still exists, it simply becomes harder to access quickly. Researchers at Harvard Medical School followed more than 6,000 adults over 65 for nearly 10 years. Participants with long-term uncontrolled hypertension performed significantly worse on tests involving verbal fluency and word retrieval compared with those whose blood pressure remained well controlled. These changes often appeared years before more serious cognitive problems developed. One patient I'll never forget was Dorothy, a 79-year-old grandmother who loved telling stories to her great-grandchildren. One afternoon, she quietly admitted, "Doctor, I know exactly what I want to say, but the word just disappears." It happened often enough that she stopped participating in family conversations because she felt embarrassed. We carefully evaluated her overall health. Her blood pressure had remained elevated for years despite medication. Working closely with her primary physician, we improved her treatment plan while encouraging regular walking, better sleep, and a Mediterranean-style eating pattern. 3 months later, she returned with tears in her eyes. My grandson told me, "Grandma, you're telling stories again." Sometimes restoring confidence begins with protecting the tiny blood vessels inside the brain. The synergy tip here is critical. Challenge your brain every morning. Read aloud for 10 minutes. Practice recalling yesterday's events. Have a conversation instead of watching television in silence. Mental activity combined with healthy blood pressure supports stronger brain connections as you age. Number 6. Here is what most people get wrong about feeling unsteady. They assume balance problems are simply a normal consequence of getting older. They tell themselves, I'm just getting a little clumsy, or my legs aren't as strong as they used to be. While aging does affect balance, sudden or worsening unsteadiness should never be dismissed, especially if you have high blood pressure. Your brain is responsible for far more than memory and thinking. Every single step you take depends on an extraordinary communication system between your eyes, your inner ears, your muscles, and the balance centers deep inside your brain. These systems exchange information thousands of times every second without you ever noticing. Think of your brain as the conductor of a large orchestra. Each musician knows how to play an instrument. But without the conductor keeping everyone perfectly synchronized, beautiful music quickly turns into confusion. Your balance works exactly the same way. When high blood pressure damages the tiny blood vessels supplying the brain's balance centers, those signals begin arriving just a fraction of a second late. The result may not feel dramatic. You simply feel less steady. You hesitate before stepping off a curb. You reach for furniture while walking through your home. You feel uncertain turning around quickly. Many people assume it's their knees causing the problem. Sometimes the real issue begins much higher. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego, followed more than 5,100 adults aged 68 to 87 for nearly 10 years. They discovered that older adults with long-term uncontrolled hypertension were significantly more likely to develop gait instability and balance impairment. Brain scans frequently revealed damage to the small blood vessels responsible for coordinating movement long before major symptoms appeared. One patient I remember well was Michael, a 78-year-old retired firefighter. He wasn't experiencing pain. He wasn't dizzy. He simply said, "Doctor, I don't trust my feet anymore." When I asked what he meant, he explained that he had started holding onto walls whenever he walked through his hallway at night. He had never fallen, but he constantly felt as though he might. After monitoring his blood pressure more closely, adjusting his treatment plan, and introducing gentle balance exercises alongside daily walking, something remarkable happened. About 10 weeks later, Michael returned looking noticeably more relaxed. He smiled and said, "Yesterday my wife asked why I wasn't touching the walls anymore. I hadn't even realized I'd stopped." That is exactly how improvement often happens. Not through one dramatic moment, but through quietly regaining confidence one step at a time. The synergy tip here is critical. Practice standing on both feet with your hands lightly touching the back of a sturdy chair for support. Shift your weight gently from one foot to the other for 2 or 3 minutes each morning. Combined with well-controlled blood pressure, this simple habit helps strengthen both balance and confidence. Number 5. I see this misunderstood constantly, and it genuinely concerns me. Many people believe headaches caused by high blood pressure are always severe. They picture unbearable pain that sends someone rushing to the emergency room. While dangerously high blood pressure can certainly cause intense headaches, the early warning signs are often much quieter. Some people notice a dull pressure across the forehead shortly after waking. Others describe a tight band around the back of the head. The discomfort may disappear later in the morning, leading them to believe it was nothing more than sleeping in the wrong position. Imagine your brain as a delicate sponge surrounded by thousands of tiny water pipes. When pressure inside those pipes remains too high for years, the surrounding tissues begin experiencing strain. You may not notice it immediately, but over time, the effects become increasingly difficult to ignore. Researchers from King's College London studied more than 4,600 adults over the age of 70 for approximately 8 years. Participants with poorly controlled morning blood pressure reported significantly higher rates of recurring morning headaches. Brain imaging also showed a greater burden of small vessel disease compared with participants whose blood pressure remained well managed. One patient who taught me this lesson was Linda, a 76-year-old retired bookkeeper. She told me, "Doctor, every morning I wake up with the same headache. By lunchtime it's usually gone, so I figured it couldn't be anything serious." She had been living with those headaches for almost a year. Home blood pressure monitoring revealed something important. Her blood pressure surged dramatically between 5 and 8 o'clock each morning. Working together with her primary physician, we adjusted the timing of one of her medications, reduced excess sodium in her evening meals, and encouraged regular physical activity. Within several weeks, her headaches became much less frequent. At her next visit, she smiled. "I forgot what it felt like to wake up without reaching for pain medicine." Sometimes treating the cause is far more powerful than treating the symptom. The synergy tip here is important. If you frequently wake up with headaches, record both the time you wake up and your blood pressure reading before eating breakfast. This information can provide valuable clues for your healthcare provider. Number 4. Here's what most people get wrong about mental exhaustion. They assume feeling mentally drained after reading, balancing a checkbook, or following a conversation simply means they're getting older. But when everyday thinking suddenly requires much more effort than it used to, your brain may be working harder because its blood supply is becoming less efficient. Think of your brain like an engine. A healthy engine runs smoothly with very little effort, but if the fuel lines become partially blocked, the engine must work much harder to produce the same amount of power. Eventually, even simple tasks become exhausting. Your brain depends on a constant supply of oxygen-rich blood. When years of high blood pressure damage the tiny vessels delivering that oxygen, mental tasks that once felt effortless can begin feeling surprisingly difficult. Researchers at Columbia University followed more than 5,700 adults aged 65 and older over 11 years. They found that participants with uncontrolled hypertension experienced faster declines in processing speed, attention, and executive function. The very skills needed to plan, organize, solve problems, and stay mentally focused throughout the day. One patient I often think about was Barbara, a 75-year-old retired accountant. She looked at me one afternoon and quietly said, "Doctor, balancing my checkbook used to take 15 minutes. Now it feels like I've worked a full day." She wasn't becoming lazy. Her brain was simply working much harder than it should. After improving her blood pressure control, increasing her daily physical activity, and encouraging better sleep habits, Barbara noticed something encouraging. 3 months later, she smiled and said, "I'm reading novels again. And I'm actually remembering what I read." That may sound like a small victory, but protecting the ability to enjoy a favorite book is exactly what healthy brain aging is about. The synergy tip here is critical. Challenge your brain during the time of day when your energy is highest, usually in the morning. Read, solve puzzles, learn something new, or write in a journal immediately after taking a short walk. Physical activity temporarily increases blood flow to the brain, helping many people think more clearly. Before we continue to the 3 most important warning signs, I'd like to ask you something. If this video has helped you understand your brain in a way no one has explained before, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Every week, my goal is to share practical, science-backed information that helps adults over 65 protect their memory, mobility, heart, and independence. And if you know someone living with high blood pressure, even if they say they feel perfectly fine, please share this video with them. Sometimes one simple conversation today can prevent a life-changing stroke tomorrow. Number 3. Here is what most people get wrong about their eyesight. They assume that blurry vision, difficulty focusing, or occasionally seeing dark spots is simply because they need stronger glasses. And sometimes that is true. But your eyes are much more than windows to the world. They are also windows into your brain. The tiny blood vessels inside your eyes are remarkably similar to the tiny blood vessels inside your brain. When years of high blood pressure begin damaging one, there's a good chance the other is being affected as well. Think of your eyes and brain as 2 neighboring gardens fed by the same irrigation system. If the pipes supplying one garden become cracked and narrowed, the other garden is likely experiencing the very same problem. Your vision may be warning you long before your brain develops more serious symptoms. Researchers at the National Eye Institute followed more than 5,400 adults over the age of 65 for nearly 9 years. They found that older adults with uncontrolled hypertension were significantly more likely to develop retinal blood vessel damage, and those changes were strongly associated with an increased risk of stroke and cognitive decline later in life. One patient I'll never forget was Carol, a 76-year-old retired teacher. She came to my office saying, "Doctor, every now and then my vision becomes blurry for just a minute or two. Then everything goes back to normal." She assumed it was simply because she was tired. Fortunately, she mentioned it during her appointment. A detailed eye examination revealed early hypertensive retinopathy, damage to the tiny blood vessels in the retina caused by years of elevated blood pressure. Together with her primary physician, we improved her blood pressure management, encouraged regular exercise, and adopted a heart-healthy eating plan. Several months later, the episodes had become much less frequent. More importantly, we had likely prevented much more serious damage from developing. The synergy tip here is critical. Schedule a comprehensive dilated eye examination every year, even if your vision seems perfectly normal. Sometimes your eye doctor can detect blood vessel damage years before you ever notice symptoms yourself. Number 2. I see this overlooked far too often. Families frequently notice that an older loved one has become different. Not forgetful, not confused, just different. Perhaps they're more irritable, less patient, more anxious, less interested in hobbies they once loved. Many people assume these are simply emotional changes associated with aging. But changes in mood can sometimes reflect subtle changes happening inside the brain itself. Imagine your brain as a beautiful symphony. Memory, judgment, emotions, attention. Each section plays together in perfect harmony. But when high blood pressure gradually damages the delicate wiring connecting those sections, the music begins losing its balance. The result may appear first as emotional changes long before obvious memory problems develop. Researchers from University College London followed over 6,200 adults aged 65 to 85 for almost 10 years. They discovered that persistent hypertension was associated with a significantly higher likelihood of mood changes, reduced emotional resilience, and slower cognitive performance, even among participants without diagnosed dementia. One patient who taught me this lesson was George, an 80-year-old retired mechanic. His daughter told me, "Doctor, Dad isn't forgetting us. He's just not himself anymore." He had become unusually impatient, quiet, withdrawn. Nothing seemed to interest him. After improving his blood pressure control, increasing daily walking, improving sleep quality, and encouraging regular social interaction, something beautiful happened. 3 months later, his daughter smiled. "He's laughing again." Those 4 words meant everything. Sometimes protecting the brain means protecting the personality that makes someone who they are. The synergy tip here is essential. Stay socially active. Meaningful conversations, shared meals, volunteering, reading groups, church activities, or simply calling a friend help stimulate multiple areas of the brain while reducing stress hormones that can contribute to elevated blood pressure. And now, number 1. This is the silent warning sign neurologists fear the most, because it often happens without pain, without weakness, without anyone realizing it has occurred. The warning sign is silent strokes, also known as silent cerebral infarcts. The name itself can be misleading. These tiny strokes are not truly silent. Your brain notices them. You simply may not. Think of a beautiful painting hanging on your wall. Now imagine removing one tiny brushstroke every few weeks. You wouldn't notice the first one, or the 10th. But after years, the painting slowly loses its detail. Silent strokes affect the brain in much the same way. Each one may damage only a tiny area, but together they gradually increase the risk of memory loss, balance problems, slower thinking, vascular dementia, and eventually major stroke. Researchers from Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital followed more than 9,000 older adults over nearly 12 years. Brain MRI scans revealed that many participants had experienced silent strokes without ever knowing they had occurred. Those individuals were significantly more likely to develop cognitive decline, walking difficulties, and future disabling strokes compared with participants whose MRIs remained free of silent infarcts. One patient changed the way I speak about blood pressure forever. His name was Edward. He was 79 years old. He felt perfectly healthy. No headaches, no dizziness, no weakness. He only came to see me because his daughter insisted he should have a routine evaluation. His blood pressure measured 182/98. Because of a few subtle balance changes, we ordered a brain MRI. The results surprised all of us. Edward had experienced multiple silent strokes over several years. He looked at me in disbelief. "Doctor, are you telling me I've had strokes and never knew it?" The answer was yes. Fortunately, we had discovered them before a devastating major stroke occurred. Working closely with his healthcare team, Edward brought his blood pressure under control, adopted a Mediterranean-style diet, walked every morning, improved his sleep, and never missed another medication dose. 1 year later, his follow-up MRI showed no evidence of new silent strokes. He smiled during that visit and quietly said something I still remember. "I thought blood pressure only threatened my heart. I never realized it was quietly stealing pieces of my future." That sentence has stayed with me ever since. The synergy tip here is the most important one in today's entire video. Know your numbers. Check your blood pressure regularly. Take your medications exactly as prescribed. Stay physically active. Eat plenty of vegetables, fruits, whole grains, healthy fats, and lean proteins. Sleep 7 to 8 hours whenever possible. And never ignore new neurological symptoms, even if they disappear quickly. Those small actions repeated consistently remain the most powerful protection you can give your brain. As a physician, I want to leave you with one final thought. Your brain is extraordinary. It stores every birthday, every family photograph, every laugh shared around the dinner table, every lesson you've learned throughout your entire life. It deserves the same care and attention you would give your heart. High blood pressure is dangerous not because it always causes immediate symptoms. It is dangerous because it quietly changes the future if left untreated. The encouraging news is this: your future has not been written yet. Every healthy meal, every morning walk, every medication taken correctly, every blood pressure reading checked at home, every good night's sleep, every conversation with your healthcare provider, those choices matter. They protect millions of tiny blood vessels working around the clock to preserve your memories, your independence, your personality, and your quality of life. It is never too late to start protecting your brain. If today's video helped you understand something new, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future videos dedicated to healthy aging, heart health, brain health, and living independently after 65. Now I'd love to hear from you. How often do you check your blood pressure at home? Tell me in the comments below. Your experience may encourage someone else to begin taking theirs more seriously. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I am Dr. Robert Hale. Take good care of yourself because every healthy choice you make today is an investment in the memories you'll cherish tomorrow.